Hi, everybody. My name is Suzanne Grossman. For those who don't know me yet, I direct career services at the Marxe School at Baruch College. We have a few other CUNY School students potentially joining us today, mostly students from the Marxe School. I'm here with my colleague Samantha Bruno, who's our assistant director, and we're very happy to have representatives of the Solomon Fellowship, including one of our alums who participated in the program, and then the staff from the fellowship itself, come and talk to you about this unique opportunity. So I'm going to turn it over. I can't remember if I'm turning over to Alyssa or Ira. To Ira. Okay, Ira, you're going to kick us off and get us started.
Sure. Thank you very much for having us. My name is Ira Tannenbaum. I am a Baruch alum, a Zicklin alum, and I'm the acting deputy commissioner for external affairs here at New York City Emergency Management. I'm also one of the founders of the John D. Solomon Fellowship for Public Service, which what you're going to hear about. I'm really excited. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us. If there's any questions, and I'm sure you'll get a lot of information from Alyssa and Pascal, but certainly don't hesitate to ask any questions, and we'll get you any information you need, because we're really excited about finding ways to partner with CUNY to get as many fellows going through this program as possible. So I will turn it over now to Alyssa for the presentation component. Thank you again for joining us.
Would you like me to start the presentation, Alyssa?
Yes, please. And we can actually advance to the next slide and the slide after that. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alyssa Borger, and I'm the Strategic Partnership Specialist here at New York City Emergency Management, and I'm also a Fellowship Administrator. And for honorable mention, I'm also a John Jay alum. So today, this information session will provide CUNY graduate students with the opportunity to learn about the John D. Solomon Fellowship Program, as well as our 23-24 application cycle. Today's topics will include fellowship background. We'll have Pascal, one of our fellow alums, talk to us about her experience. We'll talk about eligibility and our application timeline. Next slide, please. The John D. Solomon Fellowship for Public Service was established by the friends and family of the late John D. Solomon, an accomplished journalist on Homeland Security, emergency preparedness, and resilience. He was also an active member of his local community emergency response team, otherwise known as CERT. The John D. Solomon Fellowship for Public Service provides the opportunity for 10 graduate students in the New York City area to complete a 9-month paid fellowship at a government agency or nonprofit organization. Applicants must be in a graduate or PhD program from September to May during the fellowship year. For example, for this year's application, fellows must be a student from September 2023 until May 2024 to be eligible for the fellowship. All degree programs qualify for the fellowship. This is an in-person fellowship. While there are no residency requirements, applicants must be able to commute to New York City 2 to 3 days per week during the duration of the fellowship. Once selected, fellows should be able to commit about 15 to 20 hours per week at their assigned agency or organization. These hours can also include fellowship events with other agencies, classes that you can take, and many more opportunities. We're excited to share that that each fellow will receive a $10,000 stipend split between each semester for their successful participation in the program. This is a significant increase from the previous years. And during the fellowship, fellows will have the opportunity to work on programs and projects that focus on emergency preparedness and resiliency and involve collaboration with New York City agencies, community-based organizations, and other key partners. And now for our participating organizations. New York City Emergency Management has 4 placement opportunities. Placements at NYCEM include our Emergency Operations Center unit, government relations, risk reduction and recovery, and strategic partnerships. We also have Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, Department of Education, NYPD, FDNY, and American Red Cross in Greater New York. Next slide, please. After 11 years, we've made significant impacts with close to 40,000 hours of service from our 90 alums. More than half of the fellowship alumni have moved on to careers in New York City, New York State government, and beyond, while the remaining alumni have found exciting careers in nonprofit and private organizations around the world. Projects that some of these fellows have worked on have created lasting impacts to our city and to emergency management as a whole. Some examples of projects fellows have worked on are developing tabletop exercise toolkits, integrating disability access and functional needs into shelter plans, and many more. Next slide. Next, I would like to introduce Pascal Etienne, a Baruch alum and a 2018-2019 fellow, to answer a few questions. Pascal, can you introduce yourself and tell us where you were placed during your fellowship?
Hi, everyone. I'm Pascal Etienne. I'm currently at the FDNY and started my time at the FDNY as a fellow in 2018.
What were some memorable projects that you worked on during your placement?
So I so appreciated my time at the FDNY. It really was the beginnings of my understanding of city government. I, as a fellow, worked a lot on the Diamond Plate project, which was, it's essentially a public safety emergency management website where we would upload new content weekly. So that's where the emergency management piece came in. But I was also privy to I worked in their multimedia unit, but I also worked on podcasts. I'd work on magazines. I'd worked on, but in particular, my most memorable project was working on a book. And so that book was about a firefighter who was chief of fire prevention at the time, Ron D. Spadafora. And so he was the most prolific writer for the FDNY's magazine. And I worked on the book that we released. And so really was a very good kind of big project for me to bite into and essentially get operational knowledge of the FDNY. It really allowed me to understand kind of the things that they would tackle. Like there were subjects on green firefighting or like green materials or public speaking. So it gave me a bit of everything, but honestly, the foundation of working at the FDNY as a fellow was the reason why I'm able to be here today.
And you alluded to some of this, but how did the fellowship help your career? What specific skills were you able to really hone in on and develop while you were at your placement?
Honestly, the fellowship really strengthened my soft skills and some of the hard skills of institutional knowledge. I was able as a fellow to sit here and work at the FDNY. Like the relationships I had in terms of like going to content meetings every week or every week were the relationships that I leveraged when I became a contractor and then a full-time employee there. It gave me the basis of understanding and built the relationships that I still rely on now. They remember me as a fellow, but there were also the people that I still work with to this day. The fellowship really allowed me to do that. And it was great because I had a running start. You know, it wasn't like when I was here, people looked at me as a fellow and they said, oh, she's good. And then it allowed them to decide, hey, we should offer her a job. We should offer her, you know, so it really allowed me to go further at the FDNY. And they always knew what I was capable of. The family was wonderful and really cared a lot about us learning. And the fellowship is a very good kind of peek behind the curtain of what it means to work in city government. You see maybe a project stalling or eventually moving forward, and you kind of understand what it takes to make something move quickly in government, or like the kinds of things that people kind of put priorities on, and really allowed me to see the relationships and the building of those things. I got to kind of really take hard skills I had learned from previous jobs and such. And then like being in the fellowship environment, it gave me a learning curve. But the thing is that I could still move forward with those skills and just like expand upon them.
Thank you so much for that answer. And one final question. What advice would you give to future applicants as an alum and as a supervisor?
I would say the fellowship is very much what you make of it. I've seen some fellows come and go, and I think the fellows that do the best and are people who know what they want to get out of it and decide to put in as much effort. It's what you make of it. You know, people can see you're making the effort, and when you make the effort, people want to do more for you. They want to make sure that you're okay, and it's never for naught. You know, sometimes the timing isn't right in city government for a specific path, but that doesn't mean they forgot about you. Like, there are people will still call back because they were good. You know, the Solomon Fellowship has a very good reputation at my agency. And the thing is that people who do well here are people we want to keep around. I'm a good example of it, but like, it's the same for everyone. Like, there were fellows before me that they had offered jobs to. It's just depends on the agency on what the ability is at the time, but it really is what you make of it. And don't think that like people aren't paying attention, because if you're good, they want to keep you around.
Thank you so much, Pascal. And to follow up with what Pascal said, that also goes for NYCEM as well. We have many alumni that are now in leadership roles at NYCEM, and they know, our leadership knows what the good work that they did when they were a fellow, and you can really see that translate into their leadership. So thank you, Pascal, for joining us today. We really appreciate that, and we appreciate your points. Thank you. All right, and then we'll talk about eligibility if we can bring up the slides. All right, so again, to be eligible for the program, you must be a graduate student during the period of September 2023 until May 2024. And again, any degree program is accepted. Emergency management is a diverse field, and we're always looking for new ways and opportunities to bring new life into the field and into the fellowship. We are looking for individuals with a strong commitment to New York City, to public service and emergency management. Individuals with a strong oral and written communication skills are key. A proactive, can-do attitude and strong desire to learn really shine through and are really needed with this fellowship. Because as Pascal said, it's what you make of it. And there are endless opportunities at your placement site, and we work with all of the placement sites to provide opportunities for fellows. So we're really looking for folks that are go-getters and want to really take advantage of these opportunities. Next slide. And for the application process and timeline. So to apply, we ask that you go to nyc.gov/John D. Solomon Fellowship, or the link below, our NYCEM Samaritan link. We will drop those in the chat for you. That way you have access to them. But you're going to create an account and fill out the application, and be sure to attach your resume. Be prepared when you do your application to answer a few short questions about your interest in public service as a part of the application. And when I say these questions are short, they're only 250 characters for each question. So take some time to think about your answers, and every word, every character counts. And our application timeline. So the application is currently open. The deadline to apply for the current cohort is March 26th, 2023. After the deadline, our admin team will review the applications and the resumes, and we will narrow it down and invite finalists to our finalist webinar, which is happening on April 4th. During this webinar, finalists will hear from participating agencies about potential projects for their new cohort. Following the webinar, we have virtual interviews that will be conducted from April 17th until April 26th. And then finally, fellows are notified about their placement into the program in early May. This can depend on some other things, but we try for as early as May as possible. Next slide. So feel free to put any questions for us in the chat. And following this presentation, if you have any questions, you can always email us at jdsffellowship@nyc.gov. And we will also link that in the chat for you. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ira for any closing remarks, and we can get into questions.
Great, thank you very much, Alyssa and Pascal. One of the things I just wanted to close out with the presentation is to make sure to tell everyone, emergency management, as Alyssa said, is a very diverse field, and we bring a lot of different relationships and coordination to the table. So I wouldn't want anyone to think, oh, I'm not doing a master's in emergency management, this isn't the program for me. The public service experience that comes from this, yes, every project will have some sort of connection to emergency management, but we're really excited when we bring in diverse backgrounds and diverse experience to give everyone the opportunity to work in public service, to taste public service, and through the context of helping everyone out in emergency management. And I also would want to mention about this particular fellowship, one of the amazing aspects of the fellowship is that it really is a family driven fellowship in partnership with the city. The Solomon family feels a connection to every single fellow that comes through and builds a connection. Just the other night, we went out on our annual fellowship experience to the Edward Hopper experience at the Whitney. So really, and dinner afterwards as a group. This is a network that you're going to build and that goes on for a very long time. In addition to the professional experience, it's a personal connection that you build with many other alumni. So we're really excited about the program. We feel that it does a lot for folks, and excited to see if you have any questions, and look forward to your applications. Thank you again for giving us the opportunity.
Great, thanks so much, everybody. There are some questions coming in the chat, and I think some people probably joined a little bit late, so they missed some of the answers to these, but we can reiterate. So the first one is the fellowship a year program?
So the fellowship runs for 9 months. We start in the beginning of September and we go till the beginning of May. Okay. And I also want to mention that we understand that you are students first. So if you have a winter break, we want you to be able to take that time to enjoy your break and reset. So if you want to take some time off during your winter break, that's totally fine. But also if you want to take advantage of having that break from school and put in more work at your placement opportunity, it's very flexible and you're able to do that as well.
Great. Is the fellowship open to international students?
It is, but you have to be eligible to work in the United States. Unfortunately, the fellowship cannot sponsor anybody to work.
How many are selected in total? And we'll combine these. Are present city workers allowed to apply, or is this a conflict?
So we have 10 placement opportunities for each cohort. And I will ask Ira for the second question. I don't think we've run into that yet.
That's a new question. We're happy to explore it and check with our legal folks just to make sure that there isn't any challenges, but certainly happy to follow up with an answer to that.
Okay. Is the fellowship looking for students that will graduate in May 2024?
Yes, so we want graduate students who will be in school the whole duration of the fellowship term. So from September 2023 to May 2024.
And to add, we're The goal is to have as many people complete the fellowship, the full fellowship. We understand if people graduate in January, they're looking for jobs, and so if they get a job, then they drop out of the fellowship. So the goal is to have folks who are going to be students through May and be able to complete the program.
And just to clarify, you don't have to graduate by May 2024. You could graduate after that. You just
Sure.
have to be a student the whole time.
That's a good point. Yes.
Are there any certifications provided through the training and professional development you provide?
Yes, so all fellows will be enrolled in what we call NYCM Academy, which is NYCM's learning and development system. Through that, fellows can register for our emergency management certificate program and take part in a guided learning structure that gives a good insight to emergency management in New York City, and also gives them opportunities to work with other agencies that aren't other placement sites. And you're with every other city employee that's taking part in that program. They also have opportunity to join in on lectures. We have brown bag lunches at NYCM where we have professionals come in and share about their organizations and their work. Many opportunities, and we share those monthly with our fellows.
Great. Will students who also work full-time be able to participate?
That depends on the student and on the individual, because we do ask for 15 to 20 hours. And it's a big commitment, especially with school. And again, we want fellows to complete the fellowship through May. So fellows really need to be mindful about their capacity for working in school and being able to juggle all of that, because it can be a challenge.
And it is, I mean, this is on site during business hours. So I think sometimes I meet with students who are like, can I do this outside of regular work hours? And I don't, for you guys, that's not
For this particular fellowship, it's really an opportunity to experience working in the not just on the projects, but being integrated into the agency or the organization that you're being placed at.
Pascal, I know you have to leave at about 1:30, so you have a question here. What experience did you have before that was relevant to your fellowship placement, and how did that influence your decision to join the fellowship?
So I came from comms and a communications and marketing background. I had worked previously doing AmeriCorps Vista, and I had been in marketing and a few other things before that, PR. So with this, I was really trying to find a placement that I felt like reflected both the public relations, communications kind of skill set that I already have, and build upon that, and also get emergency management experience. I was already interested in public interest, and so working for a city agency seemed like a good fit for me. Specifically, the placement at FDNY was very related to that. I mean, now we've since kind of changed our kind of thought process based off of like the availability of the mentors and such, and like where it's placed in FDNY. But for me, that was what I cared most about. And so like the ability to go to FDNY was my first choice because of the ability to kind of do what I already was interested in continuing doing, but also just kind of build upon skills. I was very interested in the fellowship before I did it. Like I had seen the advertisement for it a year before, and I was like, oh, well, it won't work just yet. So when I was able to apply my last year, I was very set on being able to use the fellowship to essentially get a job here. So I took my fellowship very seriously because I knew this was my opportunity for them to decide to pick me and create an avenue for myself. I understand that that's not everybody's timing and what have you, but like I was very strategic about choosing what opportunity would be available to me and kind of trying to be the best person for that choice.
Thank you. I guess this sort of relates about, is there a listing of the job opportunities that are being offered? And I'm assuming like that's the part after, well, you could, I'll let you all respond to that, the more specific than just the agency name.
So during our finalist webinar, we narrow it down to about 25 finalists, give or take. During that webinar, agencies will share the specific projects that they would work on at their agency, and that's shared by the supervisors at that location. In the process of doing interviews, we ask the finalists to rank before the webinar what agency they would like to work with. And then we ask for rankings after the webinar. So we do a little bit of matchmaking. And then in the interview process, we aim to give applicants about 5 to 7 interviews during that week with the different placement opportunities. So they can learn a little bit more about it in a one-on-one setting, and also be able to interview for many different, if they are interested in different organizations.
Just to clarify, when a candidate is at that stage, are they in the fellowship or they still have to be selected by the agency?
They still have to be selected by the agency. So at that point, they are just finalists. They are not in the program until they receive an offer letter from us saying, congratulations, you have been placed at X agency for this period of time.
Okay. There's a question. I discern a focus on working with major social media platforms. Is that what the work with the agencies is about?
No, every agency is different. So that, I believe, is just more of what Pascal did during her time at FDNY. But we have fellows in government relations that are working with elected officials and helping provide briefings to the commissioner. In our Emergency Operations Center unit, fellows have worked on guides that are used by our activation staff. At DEP, environmental protection, our fellow would go into the field and help work with water main breaks and work with the logistics with that. So there's a variety of opportunities that really have a wide span for emergency management.
What happens if you don't get selected by an agency as a finalist?
So during this process, when we send out the application letters, if you have not been selected, you might not know that yet, because we have to wait for everybody to agree to the terms of the fellowship and make sure that the match is set. So we do have some alternates, and we would discuss that with you later in that application process.
Okay. Looks like Pascal had to run. I have a question, having worked with some variety of students over the past few years with applications. Where would you say students who do well just in the application phase, and where, just more of the like advice for students applying and how they stand out, or where you've seen people go wrong, where you're like, ooh, I wish they did something differently. What kind of tips do you have in terms of putting together a strong application?
So for me, seeing a clear resume that has a clear picture about some of your experience as well as skills that you've done at those jobs or at those opportunities, and making sure, this sounds silly, but making sure that your application is as up to date as possible, that your resume is up to date, that your answer to our short questions is as clear and concise and free of typos. That is the number one thing that stands out for me when somebody doesn't have a resume that, for instance, would say that they're in graduate school, because it's like, wait, you're applying for a graduate fellowship. That's the number one thing for me. And really having the opportunity to, in a resume, I know it's hard, but putting your passion into your resume, because that gives us a little bit of an insight. And then when you come in for the interview, being able to show that you're a go-getter, you're able and willing to learn, and just your passion for public service, that once you get to the interview stage, you really can let that shine. And in the interview process, that's what stands out to me the most.
I would just to add to that, one brief, those are all great tips. One other thing is this is an opportunity for the fellow to learn and experience, but it's also what we found from the supervisor side and from the agency side is they're really looking for people who can come and contribute. And who are not just going to be interns who sit and file papers or read briefing documents, but who are potentially going to be writing those briefing documents. So the ability to convey work that has been done and that show opportunity, the ability to work independently with a little bit of guidance is something that I think a lot of the supervisors and a lot are really excited about when they see a resume that conveys that sort of idea.
Yeah, and to add to that, we say that you are a fellow, but you really are a staff member to that organization, and you are treated as such. And if anything, with a little bit of special value because you do represent the program. So just something to keep in mind.
Great. There was a question about the United Nations being listed on the slide. Was that ever a placement site, or is that where someone went to work after?
That's where someone went to work after.
Right. And I can say I worked with plenty of Baruch Marxe students who have done this program and gone on to either get hired at their placement site or to do other things. We have people at FEMA now who did this program. And these are all people who didn't already necessarily have an interest in emergency management. I think they just were exposed to a lot of interesting things during the fellowship. So there are a lot of things you can do with this program.
Yeah, I have a quick question. Are there any agencies that applicants don't typically think that would be partnering with with the fellowship, that they're kind of surprised to see, like, oh, there's an opportunity there? Like, I hadn't thought of that before.
That's a great question. Many of our placement sites have been partners for many years. So that's exciting, but there have been some opportunities that have changed a little bit. So with this year, our Department of Environmental Protection fellow is actually working in their commissioner's office and has a more wider view of what the agency does and is able to work in different bureaus instead of just their specific emergency management bureaus. And that's not something that we were able to predict beforehand, but just has been a great opportunity for that fellow. I'd also like to plug that we have a LinkedIn page for the fellowship. So we encourage you to give us a follow, take a look. Our fellows write about their experience. So you can read about the specific projects that they've worked on throughout the years. And we post those about once a month.
Just trying to find the link. I have that here. That's the LinkedIn link. Yeah, is there any, I'll put the fellowship link itself. Any other things to put in the chat for follow-ups?
I can put in our email. So if anybody has any questions, if you're going through the application process and you're not sure if your resume was attached or something like that, you can always email us. That email is monitored all the time.
And Baruch Marxe grad students, you are welcome to work with us on your resumes, especially if you have not already, as was emphasized that that's really important. Other graduate students, I'm sure you have your respective career offices who are very happy to work with you as well to just make sure it's polished for this type of application.
Yep, and there are certainly ways to put your passion into your resume. It is absolutely possible.
And I do have to say, it does show when you can tell when you're looking at a resume when an applicant has gone that extra step and received help on their resume. It always shows, and if anything, it shows a little bit about the applicant, that they are willing to work hard for what they want.
Receiving help on your resume is not a negative. The fact that, like Alyssa said, the fact that you took the time out to work with someone to get the tips is a positive.
And as a reminder, the application is really resume and essay questions, and that's pretty much it, right?
Yes, it's a simple, and
Yes.
The essay questions are 250 characters. So think a little bit bigger than a tweet that you would put out on the internet. It's, when I applied for the program, I came up with these elaborate answers, and then I had to do a bunch of deleting. So it's a simple application, but it requires detail.
Right, a thoughtfulness, but at the same time, there are plenty of opportunities that have want transcripts and letters of recommendation, and this simplifies all of that to hopefully make it easier for our students to apply.
Yes, and you can edit your application up until the point that we close the application. So if you were to submit an application over the weekend and you wanted to update a couple of things, you can feel free to do that. But the application will be closed around midnight on the 26th.
Okay.
Yeah, 11, in graduate terms, 11:59 on the 26th.
Okay. Perfect. So a few weeks to get everything in order. All right. I don't know if there's any, I think everyone put their questions in, but if there's any last questions, throw them in there. Otherwise, you have the contact details in the chat, the links. We are going to be sending around the recording to everybody. If you want to go back and look at anything, and there was a variety of people who didn't make it today, we'll get this as well. So please join me in thanking Alyssa and Ira from the Solomon Fellowship. We look forward to seeing as many CUNY student applications as possible. So thanks so much, everybody. And
Thank you.
our pleasure, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.